see how long I take to do this. All right, so we have and I'll write it as a ratio. So 1.5, and I saw somebody in class use decimals. That's okay. It's whatever you choose. Actually, decimals probably will be easier here. So let me write, what is this, flour? So here's a ratio. For every 1.5 cups of flour, I use 0.4 or 2/5 cups of water. And this is water. Sammy's using, so this is a recipe for bread. Sammy's making bread, making bread for a large party. She's using a total of 76 cups. So if you add these two, and this is where if you use decimals, it would have been 1.5 per 0.4, and you get 1.9. That would have been a little bit easier to do. But since it's in fraction, I'll just add that. That's gonna give me, and just give me 1 9/10. So right now, that's how much I have. So everything's in cups, right? All right. So it's 1.5 cups of flour, 2/5 cups of water. So that gives me a total of 1 9/10 cups, right? So that's the ratio for bread. Now she's making a large. She's making a lot of bread because there's a lot of people coming later on, and the total amount that she used was 76 cups. So we're wondering how much of each, right? If it's proportional and the ratio was kept, how much of this was used? Well, one thing you can do is just find this out, right? We have a relationship at the bottom, and we can just simply divide 76 divided by 1 9/10, or 1.9, which, to be honest, was a smarter choice, and it's times 40. So if it's times 40, and then 0.4 times 40, which means the water, we use 16 cups of water, and then just by subtraction, I'll put this here, you can figure out this without having to multiply 1.5 and 40, which is just simply 60. So that's, that would have been one way of doing it. Two, we want, definitely, this is a unit rate question to figure out which one who's faster and by how many miles. So let's do Taylor. Taylor, she runs 8 miles in 5/6 of an hour. We have Tina, who runs 8 miles in 8/9 of an hour. Okay, so you can divide both sides. So again, it's the same concept, right? So if you want to find out 1 hour, we divide both top and bottom by 5/6 and divide this by 5/6, and which is truly the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal, which is 6/5, right? So you can write 5, divide by 5/6, which is completely fine. Or if you want to write 6/5 times 6/5, and that just makes it easier because we can simplify that to 1. And then over here we have 48/5, which will change that to a mixed number, and that's 9 3/5, right? So 9 3/5 miles in 1 hour, which is not that bad. And then Tina, same thing. You want to change that to a unit rate. Divide both top and bottom by 8/9, right? Since this is proportional, remember, and we'll talk about a little bit more in class, right? The concept of proportionality. You divide y by x, 8 divided by 8/9, which is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. That simplifies to 1, and over here, that simplifies to 9 miles. So, by how many miles per hour does the faster runner run? Well, 3/5, right? 3/5 of a mile, so it would be how much faster. Many ways of doing this, but since we're in that unit rate, I will do it in that way. 3.3 and 4/5, or if you want to write 3.8, that's fine too. So this one, you know what, just to be different, I'm going to change it into decimals. 3.8 miles in 1.5 hours. What was their speed in miles per hour? So that's not. So we'll divide top and bottom by 1.5. Sorry, oops. 1.5 1.5 and divide this by 1.5, and I have no idea what that is. 3.8 divided by 1.5, we get 2.53 repeated. So here's the problem with doing it this decimal. Sometimes you'll get, so that, which is fine, miles. And actually, I will do this as a fraction because as a fraction, you don't have to deal with that repeating part. So let me do it twice. 1.5. And the only thing I'll do, instead of writing 1.5, I'll write 3/2. And I'll show you why in a second. Well, you know what? You have a calculator anyway, so it really doesn't matter. So if you didn't have a calculator, it would probably be better to write it as an improper fraction, 3/2, because you then simply have to multiply by the reciprocal 2/3, or divide by 3/2, which is the same thing, and multiply the top by 2/3. And I should have changed that to a mixed number because it would have been easier to multiply if you didn't have a calculator. But since you do, 3 4/5 times 2/3 equals, and then look what we get, 2 and 9/15 miles. So this is probably the prettier answer, right? And if you divide 9 by 15, you actually get 0.6. So it's a little bit different answer, right? I don't know why, unless I messed up somewhere. Well, let me just 3.8 divided by 1.5, 2.533. Give me a second. 3 4/5 times 2/3 equal 2. Oh, sorry, it's 2 and 8/15. That's the difference. So 8 divided by 15 is 0.533. So now it's better. Okay, so a little mistake there. So it's 2 and 8/15 of a mile, or 2.53 repeated if you chose to do it in decimals. How far can she hike in 9 hours? Well, I would definitely, and then in this case, I would definitely use the fraction version, right? We know that she can run that in hike that in 1 hour. So in 9 hours, right, we're simply going to multiply that by 9 and that by 9, and you get whatever magic number that is, which I'll write it in 2 and 8/15 times 9 equals, and that's can be simplified to 22 and 4/5. So in 9 hours, that's how much miles, by the way. Don't forget the units. Okay. This one. So to make large cappuccino, you're going to mix 2/5 cup of espresso with 1 1/6 cup of milk, and that gets you your large cappuccino at your favorite coffee shop. Okay. Now suppose you make a large batch and you use 8 cups of it. So let me write that. And you make 8 cups of espresso, right? And you use 21 cups of milk. What's the ratio? What's the proportion, right? Followed. So if it was followed, whatever this multiplied by and top and bottom should have been the same. All right. So let's just find out what happened here. So if I find out this number over here, I'll simply divide 8 divided by 2/5. 8 divided by 2/5, and I get 20. So the top was multiplied by a factor of 20, and if that was, if the ratio was, the proportion was followed, the ratio was followed, the bottom should also be multiplied by 20. But just let's double check. So 21 divided by 1 1/6. You get 18. And they didn't. So they added a little bit more espresso. So to answer the question, did you follow the recipe? No, we didn't follow the recipe. Recipe was not followed. Okay, and will it have a stronger espresso taste or a weaker coffee taste? Well, in this case, it's going to be a stronger espresso taste because we used more espresso than was necessary according to the recipe. Okay, so that's that. 5, geez, what is this? A vehicle uses 1 1/8 gallons of gas to travel 13.5 miles. So 13.5 miles takes 1 1/8 gallons of gasoline. Sounds like my car. At this rate, how many miles can the vehicle travel per gallon? So just a simple unit rate question. So we're going to divide this by 1 1/8 and divide this by 1 1/8, right? So that gives me my unit rate. So wow, this particular car is pretty bad. 13 1/2 divided by 1. Oh, hang on a second. 1/8, and we get 12 miles per gallon. Jeez, it really looks like my car. 12 miles per gallon. Not very fuel efficient, if you ask me. Crew on the highway paved works. What crew of highway works paved 2/5 of a mile in 20 minutes? Okay, so there sometimes you see it on the highway where they block everything and they're repaving. Right, the highway in 20 minutes. If they work at the same rate, what distance will they pave in 3.5 hours? So, find the unit rates. I would go here and say let me see how much they'll pave in 1 hour. In this case, it's not divided by. So if you divided this by 20, you would get the rate. Right, so let's say you decided, well, the unit rate is divided by 20, divided by 20. Well, yes, but you would have to write 1 minute. So you would get how much they would pave in 1 minute and then multiply that by 3.5 hours. What's 3.5 hours? It's 60 plus 60, right? 3 hours and then 30, so that would be 210 minutes. You could have done it that way. You know what? Let's just do it that way. So 2/15 divided by 20, we get 1 1/50th of a mile. That's how much they do per minute, right? But that's not our question. The question is in 210 minutes, which is the same thing as 3.5 hours, how much of the highway will they have paid? Well, multiply that by 210, and we multiply that by 210, and let's see what we get. We get simplified. They actually get to do 1 mile and 2/5 of the next mile. So if you found the rate, the unit rate in terms of minute, that's fine. You could have done also instead of this, if you wanted to do it by hours. This is 20 minutes, right? So in this case, to find the unit rate in terms of 1 hour. Well, if this is 20, sorry, the bottom should be 20 minutes, so it would be times 3, which gives you 60 minutes, right, or 1 hour, and you multiply the top by 3, so 2/15 times 3, you get 2/5 of a mile in 1 hour, and then you could have done the same thing and then figure out how much it's paved in 3.5 hours, multiply that by 3.5, and then top by 3.5. It's the choice. It depends on your choice of unit rate. Is it per hour or per minute? Okay. Either way, you would have come to the same answer. This is it. Wow. Okay. I'm okay with that.